Hello, welcome back to St. Paul Lutheran Church in Unionville, Michigan on this, Monday, the 14th of July in the year of our Lord 2025. Excuse me a second while I shift a little bit. All right. I'm glad you could join us as we take time during our day for God's Word and prayer. As we do, we are now back to reading through the Old Testament, which we do on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. And that brings us today to Proverbs chapters 5 and 6. Proverbs 5 and 6. Um, so, again, we're a couple chapters in, and we've been emphasizing the fact that we're not just talking about wisdom in sort of the philosophical sense. We're talking about wisdom really in a moral sense. The most basic expression of wisdom is the Ten Commandments. We're talking about the fundamental reality of how God created us to live in this world. And unfortunately, that wisdom, which seems so obvious, and it is actually written on all of our human hearts. We all have a natural sense of right and wrong. Unfortunately, sin has corrupted that, and given us the really an uncanny ability to either ignore our conscience or to excuse why what we're doing is okay in our case, or explain away why it's not really bad. So it seems like an obvious discussion, and yet in practice, um, our sinful nature gets in the way. So we'll come back to that in just a minute. So we are pre-recorded today. We'll be pre-recorded every day this week. We're visiting family, so I'm recording these in advance. So what we'll do, instead of using our normal format, you may have noticed that Psalm 36 is on the screen, and we did that last week. And you're right, we did. We are going to simply start with the reading, and then a brief meditation, and then we'll close with the Lord's Prayer. We'll give you a chance. We'll invite you to pray for specific requests following our weekly outline of prayer requests, but we're going to go with the reading, a brief meditation, and the Lord's Prayer, and then so a little bit of an abbreviated version while I'm gone. So I think everything is, so that's the plan for today and for this week. So God willing, on Monday, a week from today, we'll be able to invite you to submit additional prayer requests as usual. All right, I think everything is working. Except for my mute button. That's not working, which is annoying. Okay. My apologies in advance if I end up coughing or sneezing or something. I don't have the ability to mute myself like I normally do. All right. So, let's begin. Proverbs 5 and 6. My son, be attentive to my wisdom. Incline your ear to my understanding, that you may keep discretion, and your lips may guard knowledge. For the lips of a forbidden woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps follow the path to Sheol. She does not ponder the path of life. Her ways wander, and she does not know it. And now, O sons, listen to me, and do not depart from the words of my mouth. Keep your way far from her, and do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your honor to others, and your years to the merciless. Lest strangers take their fill of your strength, and your labors go to the house of a foreigner. And at the end of your life you groan, when your flesh and body are consumed. And you say, how I hated discipline, and my heart despised reproof. I did not listen to the voice of my teachers, or incline my ear to my instructors. I am at the brink of utter ruin in the assembled congregation. Drink water from your own cistern, flowing water from your own well. Should your springs be scattered abroad, streams of water in the streets, let them be for yourself alone, and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice in the wife of your youth, a lovely deer, a graceful doe. Let her breasts fill you at all times with delight, be intoxicated always in her love. Why should you be intoxicated, my son, with a forbidden woman, and embrace the bosom of an adulteress? For man's ways are before the eyes of the Lord, and he ponders all his paths. The iniquities of the wicked ensnare him, and he is held fast in the cords of his sin. He dies for lack of discipline, and because of his great folly he is led astray. My son, if you have put up security for your neighbor, have given your pledge for a stranger, if you are snared in the words of your mouth, caught in the words of your mouth, then do this, my son, and save yourself, for you have come into the hand of your neighbor. Go, hasten, and plead urgently with your neighbor. Give your eyes no sleep, and your eyelids no slumber. Save yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, like a bird from the hand of the fowler. Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. How long will you lie there, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man. A worthless person, a wicked man, goes about with crooked speech, winks with his eyes, signals with his feet, points with his finger, with perverted heart devises evil, continually sowing discord. Therefore calamity will come upon him suddenly. In a moment he will be broken beyond healing. There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. My son, keep your father's commandment, and forsake not your mother's teaching. Bind them on your heart always, tie them around your neck. When you walk, they will lead you. When you lie down, they will watch over you. And when you awake, they will talk with you. For the commandment is a lamp, and the teaching a light, and the reproofs of discipline are the way of life, to preserve you from the evil woman, from the smooth tongue of the adulteress. Do not desire her beauty in your heart, and do not let her capture you with her eyelashes. For the price of a prostitute is only a loaf of bread, but a married woman hunts down a precious life. Can a man carry fire next to his chest, and his clothes not be burned? Or can one walk on hot coals, and his feet not be scorched? So is he who goes in to his neighbor's wife. None who touches her will go unpunished. People do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy his appetite when he's hungry. But if he's caught, he will pay sevenfold. He will give all the goods of his house. He who commits adultery lacks sense. He who does it destroys himself. Wounds and dishonor will he get, and his disgrace will not be wiped away. For jealousy makes a man furious, and he will not spare when he takes revenge. He will accept no compensation. He will refuse, though you multiply gifts. Thus far, Proverbs chapters 5 and 6. So perhaps the most surprising thing about these two chapters is the amount to which it focuses on avoiding sexual immorality. Often in the Old Testament, it talks about adultery, it talks about sexual unfaithfulness, but what it's talking about really is worshiping other gods. But it uses that image, it uses that metaphor for worship of false gods, for idolatry. Here, there's really no question, is there, that it is talking literally about going after your neighbor's wife. It's talking about sexual immorality. And by the way, in their day, so it's not. I suppose some might draw a distinction here because it's talking about um, cheating on your wife with another man's wife. Well, at the time, a bachelorhood really was not a thing, right? There really was, we have this stage in our culture where young men and women are out of their parents' house, or at least independent, even if they are still at home, and they are, and yet they are still single. They're free. They're carefree. They're unencumbered. They have no responsibility. They have that whole stage. You know what I'm talking about. That really was not a thing back in their day. They didn't have the resources to indulge that kind of foolishness. You went from your parents' house to your married house, right? And marriages, of course, famously were arranged and all that. So if someone tries to make a point about, see, this is just talking about unfaithfulness to your spouse, sexual immorality outside of marriage really is not a sin. That really is foolishness, isn't it? But not only in terms of the amount of verses spent talking about that, but in terms of the specificity, right? Where was that? Yeah, not only does it warn against uh, wandering eyes, so to speak, but it also, and I appreciate this part of it, it also gets fairly specific about, no, find joy in your wife. Why do you go chasing after some other woman or women? Enjoy the wife that God has given you. That's part of the point, right? Um, and again, it gets a little specific, a little more specific than we would in polite company, right? And yet, that is what God instituted. Again, we see these commands as chains, as slavery. But this is a great example of the fact that, no, what God intends for us is freedom and joy. Sexuality is not an evil thing. It is good and beautiful and joyful when used in the context that God intended. Oh, and by the way, verse 18 here, rejoice in the wife of your youth. Let's not get caught up on that term, right? Here's how I hear that, as someone who has a few years behind me now. Um, if you do this, right? If you rejoice in the wife of your youth, uh, and the two of you, stand side by side through the trials of life, then there comes a point that, what interest do you have in anyone else other than the woman that you have built a life with? And and who has stood with you, and you have stood with her through so many trials. So I think that's the only reason why it specifies the wife of your youth rather than the wife of older age, because who that would just be foolishness. I mean, just stupidity. I can't imagine. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. So surprising in the length and the detail here that it goes into warning against adultery specifically, and yet look at the world around us that it is continually inventing new ways to break what we know as the sixth commandment: thou shalt not commit adultery. Unfortunately, this is fitting given what we see in the human heart. Now, again, this is also a good opportunity to remind ourselves of the deeper purpose. Because even as we hear these warnings and say, yeah, it is good, it is right, and hopefully it seems obvious to us, at the same time, the words of Jesus in Matthew 5 and 6 probably also echo in our ears. If you look at a woman with lustful intent, you've already committed adultery with her in your heart. So there is the practical level to this, but then there's also the spiritual level. That none of us, the more closely we look at what it means to be faithful to a spouse, to love your spouse as God intended, the more we see our sin. And so the answer here, the true wisdom that we are to seek, that we have the privilege of seeking, is Jesus. His righteousness, his wisdom, if you will. And the assurance that all of us have acted foolishly, but we are redeemed in Jesus Christ. Okay, I think I'm hearing some an interruption here, so I've got to cut it short here. So I'll invite you to close with the Lord's Prayer. In the meantime, thanks for joining us, and God willing, we'll see you tomorrow for our devotion. God's blessings on your day.